Um, Hello. Uh, it's like 2:17 in the morning on a Friday night. And I just wanted to make this video. Hello everyone, Neptune Cactus here. I don't know if I don't do intros, but usually. But I made a video several months ago called Netflix and Anime, another video on the subject. Because in my mind I thought I had something to add, but really I just reinforced what a lot of people thought, like at the time. And a lot of people still think this stuff, but it's been several months now. Several stuff has still happened. I made the video like several months ago. Kind of outdated. I've changed my mind about a lot of things, and I don't really like it too. I never loved the video, but I never loved it, but uh, I don't know, something about it. I've been thinking about this for like a month now. Um, Maybe, just maybe, that it was never really that good to begin with, and it was more just blind, like fanboy rage, which one I did not mean to add to, but two, I wish I never added to begin with. But you know, I guess this kind of stuff just happens sometimes. So I'm going to go through the video and I guess comment on what I think I've changed my mind on, and what I think is it more or less the same for my train of thought, because um, like I gave Netflix too much shit, and I know it's not like anyone saw it, but if it's gonna be on the channel, then I'd rather have this follow-up to be like, I don't really think this way anymore. This is just like what happened at the time and what the fan reaction was, particularly to Little Witch Academia, which, God, how unreasonable were we being? I mean, shit. But anyway, enough dilly-dallying, as the kids say these days. These days, God, it's 23 in the morning. Why am I doing this? But yeah, here we go. I'm just gonna go through, listen to this terrible video, and see what I do or do not like. If I need to correct anything, whatever. Here we go. Alright, so I know that there have been people who have covered this topic much better than I will. This video just exists to document what's been happening over the past few years. Why I've come to dislike Netflix bingeable format presentation, why I think Netflix should bring new episodes. Alright, just commenting on the whole binge watching thing. I don't love binge watching as an approach to watching stuff, but every now and then, especially now that I'm in college, like I wasn't even in college yet when I made this. It was like the summer before, so it was this year, by the way, if you were curious and like didn't go check like the date or whatever. But I still think that Netflix would benefit from bringing new content to the platform as soon as it's done. But that's just a me thing, and just because I don't like the binge watching approach doesn't necessarily mean I shouldn't like it. It shouldn't be encouraged, because I mean, they're business. They're gonna go with what works for them. It's just, you know, that can be detrimental to certain series, which we'll get into in just a second. Episodes of new anime to their service as they come out, and why I think Netflix doesn't really get anime fans who want to watch shows that are currently airing. These whims could apply to fans that are casual and hardcore. It's not going to go very in-depth, as again, others have covered the topic much better. This just exists to add to the conversation, as this is something that will no doubt come up again and again for years unless something is done to change the current state of things. Alright, real quick, I wanted to comment on the whole, we gotta fix the current state of things. I do definitely still agree with this, because I don't really, me and a lot of other people still don't really agree with the whole keeping an entire series that's airing weekly other places, and then just having it all at once. Like, I still, you know, let me just continue. Oh god. First things first, I do not hate Netflix as a service. It has greatly impacted how many consume media over the years, making broadcast television an almost vastly inferior method of watching your favorite shows. I still use it to watch shows like Archer and whatever animated movie I haven't seen before because my interest hadn't been piqued until a particular moment. However, when you look at Netflix from the perspective of a consumer of anime, specifically new anime, the experience isn't quite the same. I'd even call it lacking. What I'm about to divulge into is my experience as a fan of anime. Okay, here we go. This is this is me being like amusing. I don't really know why I did a personal recollection in order to back myself up because it only applies to me. But that was an interesting approach. To watch television and cinematic anime over the years, and the notable moments throughout this strange journey that led me to the conclusion that Netflix doesn't really understand the current anime market in the West. Ugh, God. I first used the service to watch anime in January 2014, when I was watching D. Gray Man, which unfortunately isn't available anymore on the service. I later used the site to watch shows like Attack on Titan and Trigun, the latter also not being available on the site anymore. Gotta love those Google images that I just stole and didn't credit. Whoops. At this point, I thought the platform was great for anime, not only in a way to conveniently watch the shows I wanted to watch without having to jump from a legal site to a legal site trying to find a video that worked, but it was also like a totally reliable stop and shop for my daily anime needs. Yes, daily. I had a lot of time to work with in the 9th grade. I later used the service to watch other television anime like Kill la Kill and Origami, but approximately 2 shows before Kill la Kill I watched Gurren Lagann on this new site called Crunchyroll. Now, the site wasn't exactly my preferred way to consume the medium, mainly because the app refused to work on my brother's outdated 2010 iPod. Strange, I know, but even though I had to sit through a lot of ads, I didn't find the site to be that bad. In fact, in a lot of ways, it was just like Netflix. Sometimes I found it a lot more reliable than Netflix, mainly because the image quality of the video I was watching didn't suddenly shift to a lower resolution while I was watching, making it suddenly seem like the screen was left out in the rain. God, I hate... Stupid analogy is really stupid. Good lord. Over the years, I would come to watch more and more anime on sites like Crunchyroll, Funimation, and Daisuke.net. It felt great too. It sure beat out using illegal sites. I wasn't worried that I'd get a virus just by wanting to watch some shows for an escape. And there weren't 5 to 10 ads on a page just because an episode started up. To this day, I'll still watch the odd show on Netflix here and there, but there was just something about the previously mentioned sites that made for a much better experience as a fan of anime. For a while, I wasn't quite sure on why this was, but then I remembered what happened when Netflix acquired the rights to the anime adaptation of my favorite manga of all time, 7 Deadly Sins. Their treatment of this, Magi, Adventure of Sinbad, and recently, Little Witch Academia, is what made me realize why I found other sites to be a much more comfortable experience. Okay, alright, here we go, this is gonna be... Oh my good lord, what have I done? Forgive me for not remembering specific details here, but it was either while the 7 Deadly Sins was airing in Japan, or maybe it was slightly before it started airing. Netflix acquires the rights to the show, and I thought, great, my favorite anime right now is going to gain more global exposure. When it comes out on Netflix, I'll be sure to rewatch it to give it the views it needs, too. So I wait, and wait, and wait. Then the show finishes airing, and I thought, shouldn't the show be on Netflix by now? It was around several weeks after the show ended that I was wondering if the article I came across describing the show's streaming rights getting picked up was real or not. It wasn't until later on when I found out that Netflix did indeed have plans to stream the show, but there was one detail that soured me on the transaction. Netflix wouldn't stream the show on their platform until 6 months had passed after the final episode's air date in Japan. I was dumbfounded. What reason did Netflix have for such a long wait? Was there internal trouble? Did they have too much on their plate at the moment, and the show's debut on the service had to wait a while? Remember, this is the logic and questioning of a 10th grader who didn't know a lot about the streaming industry and how it works. Good lord. To answer simply, it took the team at Netflix 6 months to give the show subtitles and dubbing in many different languages. I guess this is par for the course for a Netflix debut. It is par for the course for a Netflix thing. Dubbing is hard. I've never been to a studio or whatever, but just by like reading up on this thing, or just listening to interviews from voice actors, of course it's not an easy process. I believe I acknowledge this, but I treat it like it's some terrible, awful thing, and it's kind of shitty of me.
It must take time and a lot of work to be put into this kind of thing. Now, this is a reason I'd like to argue against. The long wait in order to give this show subtitles and dubbing in many different languages is why a show like The 7 Deadly Sins took so long to arrive on Netflix. While I can see this kind of reasoning for the dubbing, as getting together many different voice actors, writing tons and tons of different scripts to flow well in multiple languages, and the long hours it takes to record and edit to have everything just right for a 24-episode season is a large undertaking.
Look, I'm glad. I'm at least glad I acknowledged that. Like I guess I wasn't completely blinded to the process. I mean, good lord. Ugh.
However, this reasoning goes completely out of the window when you consider the possibility of having the show come out in only subtitles in all languages first. The dubbed episodes in every language listed could come later on, and I'm not sure why it's impossible to put a little notation next to the description saying something along the lines of Spanish dub coming out on this date and English dub coming out on this date.
I still think this would be a nice idea. This is still a nice idea to have the subtitles come out first, so those who want to watch it weekly can watch it weekly, and those who want to watch it all at once can just wait. But the thing is, it completely ignores the fact that not everyone who binges a show on Netflix or just any platform, like, we're not just locked into one particular, like, sect depending on how we watch something. Like, for example, say I want to watch, like, Cowboy Bebop dubbed, and it doesn't have, like, say I go on Crunchyroll, they don't have it dubbed, but, alright, allow me to rephrase that. Say Cowboy Bebop is, what, in this hypothetical, like, universe, Cowboy Bebop is just coming out in 2017, and it's like a big hyped up thing. Say like Shinichiro. Oh shit, who did Cowboy Bebop? Hang on. Yeah. Say Shinichiro Watanabe was like a known director who didn't do Cowboy Bebop, and it didn't cast a huge shadow over his work. Say it was just coming out today, and it was being released in subtitles first, and then it was dubbed in many different languages. And if you want, there are going to be people who, yeah, I did take into account that this thing takes time, the whole dubbing in multiple languages thing. Just dubbing in one language takes a shit ton of time. But that's, what am I trying to say? Good lord. I should have not done this late. That's one lesson I'm learning at the moment. But I guess what my main point is, more people are going to want to watch, if you're releasing a show like in sections like this, maybe it won't go over well for those who don't want to read subtitles. Just saying.
This method would take much less time to do, and then everyone's happier. This is assuming the entire show has to come out at once, which is what I thought at the time.
It's not just assuming the entire show has to come out at once, it's just assuming that the show has to come out, like, immediately, also, with the whole subtitle idea I have there, because it makes it sound like, so, if you released it in subtitles, because only the anime fans who want to watch it now only watch in subtitles, like simuldubs are a thing that's becoming more and more common. Like, I remember Dimension W came out like really soon to its on Toonami to its Japanese release, but you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that. Oh god, what was I saying? Let me just resume the video.
While waiting for the 7 Deadly Sins to come out on Netflix, I ended up discovering Crunchyroll's anime simulcasting. If you don't know what simulcasting is, it's when media is displayed in many places at the same time. And I was like, You're saying Crunchyroll can have the newest episode of a currently airing show on its site for members an hour after it comes out in Japan, and users of the site who aren't members only have to wait a week? That's incredible! I would eventually discover that Funimation and Daisuke.net do the same thing, and while I only have a Crunchyroll membership at the moment, I never minded the ads watching any of these shows.
I know this is like the personal recollection part of the video, but, why in the world am I treating it like it's like, you shouldn't mind if I didn't mind when I used when I watched these with ads. Like, that's dumb.
I know that doesn't apply to everyone, but if nothing else,
Oh, it doesn't apply to everyone. Okay, well, I did say that.
if nothing else, please remember that the main reason I was drawn to these sites was because of their simulcasting, consistent video quality, and something else I haven't mentioned yet. Netflix has a large catalog of entertainment to digest.
Oh boy, here we go. Look, Crunchyroll is an anime format. Netflix is not just anime. I don't know why I tried to argue this point like it was the ace in the hole with the, like, oh, guess what? Netflix isn't even just about anime. Top of that, you should all watch on Crunchyroll instead. Like, I can see where I thought of the idea, because it is like, the thing about it, it completely ignores the fact that a company like Netflix is interested in the medium at all. I guess just anime, I don't know. Is just interested in anime at all is like I think it's a really good thing now, that it's getting more global exposure, and I don't know why the point, just because they don't have as big as a catalog as Crunchyroll does, is like a thing against them, because there's nothing stopping anyone from going to either of these sites. I don't, huh?
But from the perspective of an anime fan, you can't deny that these services completely trounce Netflix in the selection of shows available. As an anime fan coming from Netflix to, say, Crunchyroll, it was like being Belle in Beauty and the Beast, seeing the Beast's library for the first time. The recent Funimation and Crunchyroll fusion only helps my case here. So, you can see the dilemma that anime that are licensed for exclusive streaming rights by Netflix are in. Yeah, the Seven Deadly Sins is being exclusively streamed legally from the most popular media streaming site in recent years, but with that it misses out on being on other less popular sites that understand what being an anime fan, especially nowadays, is all about.
I definitely still agree with this, but there's nothing I can really do to change that, so this whole video is pretty pointless now I think about it. Didn't really add too much to the conversation. Like, I get why I'd be, and I still am to an extent, kind of upset about this, but not to the degree I was several months ago. Like, it's just a product of different business models, different goals in mind, different business models that have different goals in mind, excuse me. But yeah.
So, if my personal recollection didn't clue you in, what exactly does a show being licensed on Netflix lose when its streaming rights are exclusive to the site? Well, there are many different reasons, but they can be summed up with these three. 1. The discussion and overall attention. 2. Supporting the creators is much more cumbersome. 3. Netflix's presentation and how it tries to force the binge-watching approach. Let's start with number 1. Let me ask you all a question. Have you ever watched a show on TV or had just walked out of a movie theater and jumped into a discussion with friends or family about what you had just seen? You know, tossing around questions like, what did you think of that episode? Or, what do you think? Was that movie good or not? With the occasional, oh my god, I can't believe that happened. Well, yeah, of course you did. Even if you didn't, you might have taken to the online discussions or read comments to see what others have thought of what you had just seen. This is half the fun of watching any show or movie. Anyone who consumes enough media will love discussing plot points, or theorizing, or making predictions about the next installment, or giving their 2 cents on whether or not what you had just seen was any good. I'd argue it's just human nature to share your thoughts on something. It's one of the reasons that broadcast television is still around, and why it's still a profitable business that hasn't been eliminated by streaming services. When a show you want to watch is airing,
Alright, I definitely agree with what I'm saying so far, but I think sports are actually a big reason that TV is still around, more so than just syndicated television. Not even just syndicated television, just reactions to television. I'm tired. Half of what I'm saying isn't making any sense. Anyway, I'd say sports and like maybe the news are a reason TV is still around more so than television shows, because Netflix television shows are still pretty popular. Oh wait, what am I? Well, okay, TV is still around because of sports and maybe news, not television, not television shows in and of themselves. Because because the World Wide Web has pretty much trounced it in every aspect. Yes.
majority of people who are interested in it want to watch it and talk about it. Whether or not a show's quality dips in the middle of a season or series has an impact on the amount of attention it gets, but it's definitely something that exists that help many different series. If you think that's untrue, I want you to imagine how much attention a show like Rick and Morty would get if the theorizing community and discussion simply didn't exist, compared to how much it gets with said communities.
Okay, this is even before. You can tell this video's a dated piece of work now because, God, the whole Rick and Morty thing has been blown out of proportion. Like, I still like the show, but this is before the whole Szechuan sauce thing sort of painted the fan base in a really terrible light, in my opinion. That's all I have to say on that. I don't know why I bothered pausing the thing for it.
Anime communities don't have these discussions when shows like The Seven Deadly Sins or Magi Adventures of Sinbad drop on Netflix. They have these discussions months prior, when the shows are airing in Japan. If a show is being simulcasted by any of the 3 streaming sites I mentioned before, this can lead to shows getting much more attention by the bulk of the community. If a show is being licensed by Netflix, that means the show is not only locked behind a paywall, but it also means the large majority of those who want to watch the show will either not watch the show, or simply watch it illegally. Which, when the show does drop on the service months after said show is concluded, most of everyone will have moved on to something new due to the amount of anime that's produced every season. No one wants to be excluded from the next potential big show, and especially the next potential big show's discussion.
Okay, I still agree with point 1 in pretty much its entirety, but it's probably the only point I have in this entire thing. I don't know, man, I haven't seen this in a while. It's just that I definitely don't agree with everything in this video anymore. I mean, good lord.
This leads to a show licensed by Netflix to not get as much attention legally as it could have. This leads to my second point. 2. Supporting the creators is much more cumbersome. This is more of a personal point, but I am aware that others share similar sentiments, so I thought it was kind of necessary if I was going to bring up the difficulties supporting an anime that Netflix licenses brings. As someone who wants to watch anime as legally as much as I can, the wait for any series licensed by Netflix kills me a little inside, not only because of the amount of attention it would get in comparison, but because it makes supporting a series I want to watch much more cumbersome than it should be. Now, of course, I can't be talking about The Seven Deadly Sins or Magi The Adventures of Sinbad, because despite the agonizing wait, they were actually uploaded all at once, like the site claimed they would be. Instead, I'm going to bring up a much more recent example.
Alright. This is what I really don't like about the video now. Oh my god, am I ashamed of this.
One that's become a bit infamous recently. The anime I'm talking about is Little Witch Academia. This show has become a big favorite of mine. I followed it by watching the fansubs version by the team over at Anime Senshi.
Alright, real quick. My brother touched on this when I talked about this video with him recently. He still doesn't, I don't believe he likes that I said Anime Senshi by name, because it's not a legal thing. Which I definitely still agree with the point I'll make a little later, where it's just like, if they can do it in a day, why was I still agree with the part where it's like, if they can do it in a day, why can't Netflix release everything comprehensively when it comes to subtitles? It's the whole thing with this is, it was definitely like an internal thing. It definitely wasn't, they're not some like, they're not like a villain corporation and like I guess an anime where they're like in the swivel chair or whatever, and their like backs are to the camera, and they have like a deep menacing voice, and they don't like get up, and we don't see their silhouette, and they're just like, our next target, this show that everyone's looking forward to, we're gonna release it bad on purpose. Like, come on.
Or essentially if you don't have much time. Their work is hands down some of the best fan subs I've ever seen from any fan translation project.
Yes, I still agree with this part. Anime Senshi's work on this is definitely some of the best subtitles I've ever seen. Something I wish uh, subtitles for anything did. I wish subtitles were inventive. It definitely added to the experience. It definitely did for this. The only other example I can think of, however, are just fan subs for like One Piece, for example, from like back in the day, if you know those. I even remember the like Mega Man Star Force anime when it was fan subbed in like 2008 or 9. Those were a good time, but yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I just wish subtitles still did this. It's quite a fun experience, especially with quite animated shows.
Already, the fact that Netflix didn't try to simulcast anything wasn't a shocker, but the launch of the show on their platform was just wretched. Fans reported that many of the subtitles were either broken or had a very literal translation. Others were finding dub voices lacking. While I find the latter opinion can be up to one's own interpretation, the fact that the team who translated the show went out of their way to change one of the most important lines in the show, meaning that later plot points don't make sense, is something that I don't think can be overlooked. You could say that a translation should take some liberties when trying to make a story flow better in other languages. Well, it's certainly true. I argue that if the phrase is on the back of the Japanese Blu-ray, the back of the storyboard book that comes with said Blu-ray, and even in the show itself, that maybe it's something that should have been left alone. Maybe this could have been avoided if they didn't only release the first 13 episodes, but I'll get back to that. However,
Okay, yeah, I'll talk about this. One of the biggest reasons, other than just not agreeing with a lot of the stuff I'm saying, is I listened to the Kerblog from Kerbifer, where he interviewed some of the voice actors who are also like voice directors, I believe, on the Netflix dub of Little Witch Academia, the English one, where it's very much it's very much a product of they didn't know what was going to happen. So my point kind of holds water, but not too terribly much, because now that I do think about it, having sat through Little Witch Academia twice, still not on Netflix yet because I haven't been able to set aside the time, that I guess the change is fine. It's not something I personally agree with, but I don't think they should be like called out for it. I mean, come on, man. Come on, past me. You're better than this.
I will say that if a smaller company like Funimation was recently able to dub the first 13 episodes of the second season of a show like My Hero Academia, and all 13 episodes of Attack on Titan's second season, and release them both weekly when they have the opportunity, it becomes more apparent that Netflix doesn't put as much care into this kind of media like the others they produce.
Yeah, they do. They definitely do put like a shit ton of care, and they definitely did put like a lot of care into this show. Now that I think, like, now that I'm like looking back on this, it does. It's very much a. There was no reason for me to call them out like, oh, they didn't care that they released it this way. I'm sure that all of the nice people who worked on this, whose names they're not coming to me at the moment because it's 2:50 in the morning and I'm very, very, very tired. But there's no way in hell that, like, I don't know what exactly happened behind the scenes for the episodes to be released the way they were, but it's definitely not their fault. It was someone who uploaded them. There was definitely something screwy that happened, and it definitely wasn't their fault, so I don't think they should be called out for, like, not caring when they definitely did. Because dubs, usually dubs, but especially this one, from what I've heard, had a lot of care put into it, so it's not fair to call them out for changes they made because, one, the entire show wasn't out yet, and they're not exactly the creators and can't really ask said creators. But two, they definitely put a lot of work into it, and it shouldn't be. Oh, don't ghost, don't. They're evil. They're evil, and you shouldn't like watch it. You shouldn't count their thing as canon because they made a they made a change, which is definitely something a translator should do when making it for their audiences. It's fine to change stuff. Like, I'm not gonna. It's just their interpretation, and you don't need to agree with it, but it is theirs, and it's not like it's incorrect just because it's not the original like thing.
This shoddy release after waiting for a legal premiere for 25 weeks was almost a deal breaker for my viewing on this platform. I do intend to watch the entire show on Netflix when the entire show does indeed premiere.
The entire show is out, by the way, on Netflix. I just haven't found time to watch it because I've been so busy recently. And the whole shoddy release thing, it definitely was at the time when when it's like the heat of the moment where it's like, oh, after all this time they're uploading it this shoddy. They don't care. When you think about it like that, when you go into it with a mindset of they don't care, it's really easy to come up with conclusions that the people behind the localization, I guess is the word. Localization. That. Oh. Of course they didn't care. Of course they didn't put much effort into it at all. That's not true, just because of a shoddy release that they most likely had no control over, is what I'm trying to say.
Watching an anime on a legal streaming site is one of the few ways anyone outside of Japan can support their favorite shows. It's way easier than buying every episode through people who resell the Blu-rays on Amazon, though I can't help myself.
Yeah, I still, I haven't bought any more Blu-rays, but I definitely intend to. I'm not saying that's, and the whole supporting the creators thing through Blu-rays. Let me get to that. I don't like it as much as I used to because one, well, I knew like going into the whole argument that the team themselves who like animated Little Witch Academia, they don't get too much revenue from buying Blu-rays because there's a parent company. I don't remember the name of the parent company, but excuse me. Um, just buying the Blu-ray isn't going to help too terribly much. I'd say watch it on Netflix. That probably helps them more than shelling out $70 through people who resell stuff on Amazon. Like, buy it if you want to because that merchandise. I really like the cards, specifically with the Little Witch Academia one. But it's not, buying Blu-rays is not the end-all be-all way to support something you like when it comes to anime. Just watching something legally is probably the only thing you can do. There was a Digibro video that I saw that was like, he was like, if at the end of the episode, for example, on like Crunchyroll, if there was like a donate button, I'd love it if it was something like that, but unfortunately that's not the business that anime is. Instead, what we have is a really outdated thing where the only way you can possibly support it is by either just watching it or buying overpriced stuff. It's not really ideal. Now I think about it. Oh wait, I thought about this a while ago. That's why I made this, or I am making this at the moment. Recording this late was not a good plan.
All I'm saying is, when Netflix gets the rights to shows I want to watch, releasing the show months after obtaining the license delays the whole supporting the show thing, on top of having potential viewers lost, and in Little Witch Academia's case, actually makes watching and supporting the series becoming a major pain in the ass.
I do kind of agree with what I said here, where it's like, yeah, it delays the whole supporting the show thing. But just do it, okay? It's out. You have nothing to complain about anymore past me. Just watch it and shut up.
There's only so much I can complain about when the show did indeed premiere, but there's more.
Oh, okay. There's only so much I can complain about when it did indeed premiere. Yeah, but
that means I don't really have too terribly much to add to it, do I? 3. Netflix's presentation and how it tries to force binge watching. As many of you know, Netflix, at least in America, prefers to release every series in their bingeable format. This is fine for shows that they actually have a hand in making, but for these shows, all of the reasons I've been mentioning come into play. This point is a bit more minor than the rest, but there are times when some rather strange choices were made in terms of presentation and advertising. I've already talked about releasing everything all at once instead of simulcasting. How about releasing only 13 episodes of Little Witch Academia after the entire show is wrapped up in Japan, and labeling the first 13 episodes of the entire one season that exists as Season 1?
I still don't like this, by the way. I still agree with the whole like shows like Voltron, which I have started watching, by the way. The Voltron reboot, I should say, not the original Voltron. Voltron Legendary Defenders, I think it was called. Hang on, just a second. Voltron. Well, I'm just calling it Legendary Defenders. Voltron Legendary Defenders. That was made with those seasons are 13 episodes, 13 to like 10, I believe, because I'm on season 3. I think that is 10 episodes, but I still don't like the whole splitting up a one season that exists and saying that's, oh, this is season 1, because in reality that's core 1. I know in the grand scheme of things it doesn't particularly matter, but to this day I still see when I'm like surfing the web, as Cool Cat puts it, I believe that's what he said, that they're just like, oh man, I can't wait for season 3, and I'm like, whoa, slow your roll, we still need season 2. It's tiresome, and it's something I wish, it's just an extra step in the information process, but I digress.
I don't know why the folks in charge of releasing this show on such a famous platform decided that dividing up the show like this was necessary, because that means whenever the second half of Season 1 is added to the platform, it's going to be labeled as Season 2. Well, how the hell does that make sense? If Studio Trigger made an actual second and third seasons, would they be labeled as Seasons 3 through 6? It's more false advertising than anything.
Yeah, it's actually it's a good way to put it. It's more false advertising. Not in a god-awful way, but it's just a minor hindrance to letting people know how much of something actually exists.
They did the same thing with Season 2 of the 7 Deadly Sins.
Alright, the whole 7 Deadly Sins Season 2 thing. I still don't like that they did this. It's not, again, a god-awful thing, but 4 episodes does not count. Like, say, for example, that I don't know if I bring this up in the video itself, but there was that Sherlock special that aired that like connected season 3 and 4, I believe. But they didn't say that was season 4, even though it was 1 episode long. Sure, it was like an hour long, but you could technically divide that if you were going by like 30-minute logic or hour-long episode logic. It still shouldn't count. If it's like, for example, say if like Mario World had like how many levels, and they'd like have, oh, that's not a good thing. Let me try and think of something else. I guess this is just the best example, where 7 Deadly Sins, the season 1 they have advertised, has like 24 episodes, and they made an extra 4 episode, like in between season, which is called 7 Deadly Sins: Signs of Holy War. But they released it as season 2. I know it was for advertising purposes, like specifically, but it does not gel with me because 4 episodes should not count as a follow-up to and like you shouldn't label that as an entire second season, because you're giving off the presence that like, oh yeah, this is season 2. This is all they have.
And by Season 2, I mean 4 20-minute episodes that shouldn't be counted as one season, because why would an in-between collection of mini-stories be enough to count as the follow-up to a 24-episode, completely story-driven first season? Speaking of false advertising, how about releasing an ad saying that the site was going to have all of the episodes of Little Witch Academia release, and then releasing half the show? What about no advertising?
Again, completely outside the dubber's control. It was definitely not their job. They didn't, like, again, Netflix isn't some completely ridiculous character that intentionally did this. It was more mismanaged advertising, I'd say.
How about having an advertisement for a show like The Seven Deadly Sins? A show that's more appealing to people who watch a particular type of anime, that was most likely licensed by the company on the basis of being a popular manga series and almost nothing else.
I still don't get this too terribly much. I suppose I do, but Netflix doesn't exactly. I don't know if they have an age thing, but like say the fact that Seven Deadly Sins is like put right next to Little Witch Academia, I definitely think Little Witch Academia is a more wholesome show than the Seven Deadly Sins, because the Seven Deadly Sins, like within the first 5 minutes, the main character's like groping the main female lead, which having a show like that right next to something like Little Witch Academia, or even like their other child-friendly stuff, like that Home thing, I believe that's a thing, and they like Peabody and Sherman stuff. I don't think that's quite the best idea, really, but it's their platform. They can do whatever they want. It's definitely a thing they do. I don't know if I don't know if it needs like more labeling or what, but it's a thing.
Seeing as some, I'll call them character quirks, wouldn't be very appealing to those who aren't into anime, and even fans of anime, when the show premieres on the site, while a more beginner-friendly show that's more family-friendly gets next to no advertisement on social media, while some users get it on their main page who don't watch anime, and some who use Netflix and watch anime can't find the series without looking it up first, unlike other anime that have become Netflix originals.
This is the Netflix algorithm, I guess, is what I'm calling it. Again, Netflix isn't some. This is the same thing I hate with the whole talking about anime studios like they're like one entity, where it's like, oh yeah, Madhouse, better get this right this time. They're not like a student who needs to study up on this. They're like a bunch of individual people who are in charge of like many different things on all ends. Again, so applying that to like Netflix, for example, Netflix isn't, well, someone shut a door outside. Netflix isn't some like hive mind that does one thing at a time. It's definitely, good lord, this is a terrible video.
Speaking of which, why are these licensed shows being labeled as Netflix originals? The term implies, especially with the word original, that Netflix had a hand in funding the shows, or at least had a hand in the show's creation. But that's not the case for The Seven Deadly Sins, Magi the Adventures of Sinbad, or Little Witch Academia.
This is something I still agree with. I don't like the term Netflix original. It implies that Netflix made it. It's a really bad title for their like certain. I know it's like their Netflix brand of, yes, this is good. We recommend these that we licensed, but and some they didn't just license them all, and I am aware that I believe they like funded the Voltron reboot and BoJack Horseman and Castlevania and stuff like that. But like, notice how there's no way to tell that they just licensed like the Seven Deadly Sins, Magi, and Little Witch Academia. There's you, so that title is kind of stupid. Just say like Netflix. I know it's like for advertising purposes because they're a business, but I definitely think it's my main problem with the whole advertising when it comes to Netflix is Netflix. I hate that title like with a passion. Like, Netflix didn't make this. You couldn't have picked a worse title, really.
You know what that means? There's going to be a lot of confusion among fans of all three of these shows talking about how Netflix created or funded all of these series when that's not the case at all. I was informed, however, that this is more of a really effective marketing tactic that aims to give shows seals of approval to those who aren't into anime, and thus would be more skeptical on picking up an animated show. While I can't fault Netflix for going with what works for them, being a business and all, I still can't help but think that a name like Netflix Original being slapped onto a show they've only licensed screams wrong to me. If Netflix wanted a name that'd represent their seal of approval, then why not have a logo that just says Netflix Seal of Approval? A company like Cartoon Network, for example, doesn't put Cartoon Network Original on shows they didn't produce.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. Cartoon Network does not do that. It'd be kind of dumb if they did, so I don't know why Netflix has gotten away for it for so long. Again, marketing, they go with what works for them, but I don't like it.
The bingeable format of Netflix and any currently airing series they purchase streaming rights to leads not only to the previous mentioned points, but straight up lies too.
Yeah, the text said it right there. Calm down, past me. Good lord. You act like they killed someone.
It doesn't take a genius to Google anything about any of the show's creation to discover that there's only one season of The Seven Deadly Sins and Little Witch Academia. While I'm not implying that the majority of people are idiots for not Googling such information, it's still something that comes off as a businessy move.
Yes, I could have phrased that much better. It's definitely like for example, like no one's gonna, they're just gonna take it as it is, which isn't terrible. It's not like a god awful thing that not as many people, not like a shit ton of people are gonna Google to see how many actual seasons there are when like this highly regarded streaming service says like, yeah, there's these are 2 seasons. It's fine. It's just like an extra rum of explanation that I wish didn't exist, but calm down, past me.
All of these streaming sites are businesses, yes, but I feel that there's a distinct difference between a site that knows what this kind of television and cinema is about and takes advantage of that, and a site that treats this kind of media badly, seeing it only as an extra cash grab.
Shut up, past me. Just shut up. Like, I'll say it for the last time. I should make a t-shirt out of it one day. Not for marketing purposes, just for myself to wear. But, Netflix isn't a hive mind. They're not one entity that decides to do. They don't wake up in the morning and they're like, hee, how do I mess up anime today? Just come on, dude. Piss off.
As much as I've ragged on Netflix and its business practices throughout this video, I'd like to reinforce that just because I've painted the platform in a negative light for fans of anime, that doesn't mean that Netflix is a bad service as a whole. I've heard that most of their actual Netflix original stuff is great. While it's not all to my personal tastes, the platform has still managed to entertain many on a global scale. It's just a huge bummer that whatever new anime show they seem to get their hands on doesn't get the same kind of attention or treatment.
I agreed with you up until you said that last part, where it's like, oh, they're not treated as well. They are. It's just what happened with Little Witch Academia, which is what the bulk of this is about. That definitely was not in the localization team's control. So it was just like a series of unfortunate events, which yeah, haha, is another Netflix show. But come on, dude, just shut up.
I would say I hope things are turned around soon, but with their acquisition of the new Fate anime that won't be airing now, but in November, the folks over at Netflix appear to be sticking to their guns. Will they ever learn from their... I would say I hope things are turned around soon, but with their acquisition of the new Fate anime that won't be airing now, but in November, the folks over at Netflix appear to be sticking to their guns.
Hey, guess what, everybody? It's November. And we're still here. The show is watchable now. So shut up. All you had to do was wait. Oh no. Which I know does harm the viewer base, but again, people who want to watch it will watch it, it is a legitimate problem. But come on, dude. It's not too terribly cataclysmic. I know I am being passionate about my passion, but just shut up. Just do your research. Do your damn research.
Will they ever learn from their many mistakes? Maybe. Releasing the first 13 episodes of Little Witch Academia in the piss-poor state it was in sooner than all 25 episodes.
God. Alright. If I mention that, oh, they released it bad because they don't care, one more time, I'm gonna chuck this laptop out of my building.
Episodes of The Seven Deadly Sins was sort of a one step forward, 2 steps back ordeal. So we'll see how this plays out. But for me, I hope to have the majority of new anime continue to be viewable over at Crunchyroll, Funimation, and Daisuki for the foreseeable future.
Okay, I'll just stop the video right there because I don't care about Anime Strike and my comment served nothing. In the end, it's 3:11 now, good lord. I've been recording this for like 50 minutes. Ugh. But in conclusion, I think Netflix getting their feet wet in the anime world is a good thing, a really good thing actually. Because the anime industry needs all the help it can get. It's not a good industry. Um, it promotes a lot of terrible, terrible business marketing stuff that isn't actually doing too terribly well. I know it's like, oh, it's doing well for the era. I'm like, yeah, but it's still not too terribly good as like as a business. Um, so, and again, the whole, oh, they didn't care when they release the shows the way they do. They do this. I only see this video is only seeing it from one side, the consumer. Like, would it have killed me to like look at it from a different perspective? I mean, I did slightly, but just addressing the problem isn't the same as like doing your research, kids. So yeah, while I don't hate this video, I do make some points where it's like, yeah, not everyone wants to buy overpriced Blu-rays. Please, um, at least acknowledge that this sort of kills the attention that shows like The Seven Deadly Sins and Little Witch Academia can get. But again, it just comes down to different intentions and different like markets they're trying to appeal to. Like Netflix is not trying to appeal to just a niche market like the anime fandom. They're trying to appeal to everyone, which is I think really really good. It's just that when they release the niche stuff, the same way they release their other stuff, the fans of that niche stuff will be kind of mad, like I was. And of course, yeah, like Daisuke is now shut down; they don't exist anymore, which is quite unfortunate. I liked their UI. I believe it's what it's called, like their user interface, on like their video player. But that's all I really wanted to add. I just wanted to make this to just say that because I know my channel doesn't get any attention, and I don't really care that if it does or it doesn't. But if this stupid video is gonna be on here, then I'm at least gonna make a thing that's like I don't think this way anymore. I don't know why I decided to record it so late, especially when I'm so exhausted. But that's it. I don't think I particularly need to update anything on my channel. I don't think anyone made it this far in the video, but whatever. So, see you next time, kids. I'm gonna collapse from exhaustion.